All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Bigger and Louder with Anthony and John. I'm
Woo! This is Anthony.
We are here in episode 4 already, season 1. And today we are going to be talking about a bunch of fun stuff. But first, I had a question for you. We played a lot of sports together in the past.
Yeah.
We played, I don't know, at least 10 years of sports, then like not counting people's backyards with their dads. But, 10
those
years of
fun.
real sports together. I know, those are great. And I think we should reminisce. But let me ask you, like, of all the wins that we had, and there weren't many in high school football, at least until our senior year, but with all the wins, do you ever remember, like, what happened after the game? Like the celebrations? What do we do? What do the fans do?
Oh, man. I mean, like, when you're talking wins, I mean, it's just, I don't know what to really say. I mean, think about it. Like, if you're a player or if you're a fan, in this case, if we were players, like, the hype is real. Like, if you get a big win, whether you squeak by or if it was a game you didn't think that you were actually going to excel at and you actually get the W, your mind goes into the twilight zone. It is just a free-for-all of just, like, excitement, adrenaline, and just nonstop go hard with your friends, celebrating however you see fit. Again, I can't think of a time when, I celebrated too hard, but to be honest, like that, the hype is real. So I'd say this to all the athletes out there, like, exactly what we're talking about.
Right. And I feel that too. I feel like the biggest win that I remember us having was after we won our division championship our senior year in Warwick.
Yeah.
Right. Like our high school football team had been like notoriously, up and down or down, down, down. And finally, our senior year with we had all gelled playing together again, like as kids for 10 years at that point almost. And it really solidified. We had some good coaching and we win this game that I don't think even some of us thought that we were going to win. I know, I believe, but there are definitely people like, we're going to get our asses kicked. Right.
Yeah.
And then we win that game. We win that game in such dramatic fashion with the first kicker in Division 9 history, first female kicker in Division 9 history, by the way. Right. Shout out to Melissa. But we win that game and we were nuts. We were nuts after the game, hugging, crying, everything. The stands were packed. I don't remember one person running on the field to give us a hug.
No,
I don't remember anybody ever storming the court.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't want it because how embarrassing that would be if all the moms and dads just running off the field, just giving their sons hugs and kisses across the board. I mean, you got to think of the other side too. Yeah, I mean, because you got to think about it, like the other team sitting there crying they lost, but like, can you imagine just having 500 mothers and fathers running through the opposing team, getting to the victors, and then I mean, you know how awkward that would be. That's for them.
So you're telling me that you would be in favor of it then if it was like a bunch of college co-eds?
Not really. So I mean,
take for example last night, or 2 nights ago, I think at this point, but. We have the big Duke Wake Forest game, big for them, right? For most of America, we're not watching basketball in college and at least for another 2 or 3 weeks until the tournament starts. But big win. They hadn't beat them in decades. And then the fans stormed the court. But the problem was Wake Forest was favored. It was a game they thought they were going to win. And everybody, comes down and storms the court. And this is the first time that I can see that a player actually did get hurt. But are you in favor of it then? Like if it's a bunch of college kids and we're all wasted anyway, let's get down there and party and hug the team. I mean, or is that the same feeling as your parents? Like, nah, come on. We should have won it.
I don't really listen. I think storming the field, or in this case, the basketball court, because I did read something about that. And just for the viewers out there and the listeners, John and I are not big basketball fans by no means. We couldn't really talk to sport. No disrespect to the game, but for me to watch that kind of basketball, it's like watching Pong. And it's really true. The most exciting part of basketball is really the last 2 minutes, because it's just watching the players go back and forth, kind of like soccer. Listen, I get in every sporting event, whether it's basketball or baseball or soccer, there's all these unique unwritten fan base rules, right? I think we see with the NFL, right? We see with the Super Bowl, all, players and families, come onto the team as one unison. In baseball, if you hit a home run, if you hit a game winning home run, the players are home field, at home plate, waiting for you to kind of cross the plate. And NCAA, right? Their rules are if you win the national championship, you cut the, you
cut the net down.
You cut the net, right? And I guess what surprises me is I'm all in favor of big wins. It's a really monumental win. Maybe it was a playoff win and you just squeak by a shot or a goal. But I think if I read correctly, this was like regular season, if I'm not mistaken. And the fact that fans rushed the court because Wake Forest was favored to win over a team they had not beaten in several different years. I mean, I guess pick your poison, but honestly, I mean, you could have just celebrated from the bleachers, and that would have been enough. But yeah, I mean, I was reading. I think the kid's name that got hurt. I think his name was Kyle Filipowski. I think his name was, and I think he went on record saying it was intentional. That's what the fans were doing, trying to hurt the players running on the field on the court.
Man, come on, that I don't buy at all. Like, I think it's like at that moment.
Yeah, it's
we just at this game. You think your team's gonna get their ass kicked, or like maybe squeak out one. They ended up winning, and they're caught up in the moment of the weekend game.
Yeah, I think it's like kind of throwing lemon juice on an open wound a little bit, if you know what I mean. Like, Duke, listen, like Duke, I get it. Like, I know they're like considered like a very popular and most recognizable basketball team, right? And I understand that's a big one for them, but they went into this game, they lost the game. This kid gets hurt, and I understand he's thinking, well, it's like I get hurt, we lost a game to a team we shouldn't have lost to, and we did. So yeah, it's an emotional situation. So you're gonna put blame at it. And I think if I read also, they were comparing this incident also to, I think there's a girl, her name is like Caitlin Clark, I think her name was. She also played for Ohio State. Same thing happened to her. Players just rushed the field. Yeah. I keep saying field because we're football guys. All right, players rush the court. Excuse me. Players rush the court, and they just kind of knock into these players, not realizing, like, listen, they just got done running the court for literally 3 hours straight, and they're gassed up, and they're kind of fragile right now. But I think the whole thing was, I think college kids could have actually shown a little more self-control, but to each his own. And I think even now I read like
the difference is that for those of us that don't know us, like I stayed at school and Anthony commuted, and the difference is I know that college kids cannot control themselves, especially when in mass. There's thousands of kids, tens of thousands of kids. You're not going to ask. They're not going to control.
No, because they want to, I get it. Like you're finally independent away from your family and friends, and you want to make a name for yourself, and you're just kind of repeating the same thing kids did 4 years before you or 10 years ago. And listen, like I'm all in favor of being excited over a big win, whether it's regular season or postseason or whatever it may be. But, I just think like in this particular instance, I think they could have actually held back. I think just the win would have been enough. I think would have been a lot better, actually, would have been the college students, the fans would have waited outside the locker room for Duke to walk on out and like kind of like have a lineup, and they just kind of do more hazing to them if they really want to like kind of like push their buttons a little bit, if that makes sense. Versus like rushing the court and like plowing through people. Because when I heard of this news, the first thing that came in my mind was the Malice at the Palace back in 2005. Do you remember that, John?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Of
course I remember that.
My mind literally went to that, thinking like, oh my goodness, players got involved with altercations with fans and coaching staff, and it was just that it stopped the game. But I'm like, whoa. I look at him like, I don't know. The whole thing was just stupid. I mean,
going back to the Malice at the Palace, let me tell you, I got to meet who was like Meta World Peace at the time,
Ron Artest.
After.
Make sure you don't call him that. Him. Could be a trigger warning. Don't tell him
that. No, but I got to stand next to the gentleman. And let me tell you, all I could think in my head was, if this man ran at me full speed and hit me in the head, I'd probably be dead. Like, just looking up, and I'm 5'10", and I'm looking up at him like, yo, and look, unbelievable size, man. Like unbelievable. Like he was one of my favorite players. Say whatever you want about him, but like I'm really happy with how he's come out and been like a huge mental health advocate, and for people being open and talking about it and seeking, help, the help that they need. I think he's done a lot for that community, and he's also one hell of a fucking defender.
I mean, like,
love that man. Love him.
Yeah, I mean, it's always unique to find a unique defensive person. Like, Dennis Rodman was also a defensive player back in the early 90s, and who's the guy who plays for Golden State? Draymond Green, is that his name? He's also Draymond. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah. But like, I think if I'm mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Artest come out saying that he is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and that's why he's kind of like, he came out publicly, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. Like he's a big advocate for people, just being honest about their situations and seeking the help that they need. So I think like it's critical, like that I mean, I hate to see somebody that probably wasn't his rock bottom, at least in the public eye, maybe it was, but I think like when he like those haymakers along with his teammates, and again, like we all remember him, but I think it was like Jermaine O'Neal. Like, there was like a bunch of people there that were throwing
like half the teams on both sides.
Like it was like a huge thing.
It was fine.
It wasn't some little thing.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they were allowed to come back and play the following year, I think that was like, and again, this is just from memory, but I think it was like almost the midseason or the beginning of midseason, and at that point, they had suspended him for the remainder of the year. And the following year, like he got hefty fines because they had never seen players enter the stands. Because now you're talking like liability between the organization who is like your employer, who is now representing a larger entity, which is like the NBA, and like there's just like, it goes up and down the ranks. It works equally. So, yeah, I mean, in this instance, I mean, going back to the whole Duke Wake thing, I just think that the kids actually I think maybe overreacted. I think they could have, as I said, maybe waited outside the locker room and maybe just kind of like, point at the players walking to the bus and just kind of pointing their fingers at them, versus just storming the court. I mean, that's just a little,
well,
it's nothing unique about that.
I agree. And I think that the biggest thing to me is that they they were favored. Now, I wore purple today. Not by
Is that in lieu of Wake? Is that in lieu of Wake Forest? Is that their colors?
No, this is in lieu of the UAlbany Great Danes, baby.
Oh, UAlbany.
Okay? This is baby. So UAlbany had what I think was one of the most historic 10-minute or 8-minute runs in NCAA college history. Okay, and the tournament history. Now in 2000, I think it was like 2006. I was like a sophomore, I believe, a sophomore, or I was a sophomore because we went to the tournament the 2 years after. And UAlbany makes the tournament for the first time. The Danes make it. The whole campus, dude, was nuts. And like I'm like still new to the school, and we just were having like a ball talking about it everywhere. And you'd see the basketball players. It was nuts. So we're the 16 seed. We're the 16, and the odds are 0. There has never been a 16 upsetting a 1. I wasn't lucky enough to get to go that year. I made sure I did the following 2. But that year, we all watched the game in our campus center, and we got to see, I want to say it was like 6 minutes where UAlbany was up. I think as much by like 10 or 12 points in. We're like, holy shit, we're going to win this fucking game. All of a sudden, like in the last, I would say we were up by like 12 with like 3 minutes left. Just like that. A snap, and UConn started playing fucking basketball. I think we lost like 15. Okay. And when it was a swing up by 12 all the way to losing by 12 or 15 in 2 minutes, dude. It was like they just waited the whole game to finally turn it on, and they're like, all right, we're gonna lose.
It's a script. Listen,
it's jumps.
Script writing in NCAA. This sounds
it was bad.
That sounds incredibly similar to the Patriots and the Falcons Super Bowl several years ago. They were up and they just blow it. It's like in the sports is wacky. I mean, that'll be another discussion later we'll have, like, again, if sports are considered rigged, or now the words are being used as scripted. But like the idea that like a team could be up, or any team, whether you're playing basketball or not, that teams could be up that so far in advance and they just blow it. Listen, like, again, this would be something we say for another discussion, but like I can bring evidence and just conversations that professionals have had that like players are easily manipulated.
I'll go on record that I do not believe that any professional sports are scripted, but I do believe that individual players can be heavily influenced or subject to.
That agree. I've been saying that before the internet was the internet. I've been saying that for forever. And, again, the mob was involved with like some of these players because they got into debt and they needed to throw games. And again, I know people use the word rigged and scripted synonymously, which again, we'll say this for another time, but there are times
we're talking about it now. What are you talking about?
We'll give a little prelude to it, but yeah, like when you think of the word rigged and scripted, let's make a definition right now. Scripted is usually predetermined, like you might see on WWE, where they know the outcome of it. Like it's nothing new. They know what's going to happen. The wrestlers are working with each other. The only thing that makes it real is literally those guys are taking hits and falls as needed, and they're putting their body through a lot of stress, right? That is scripted. Or if you're a Madden fan, going back to video games, right? Those are scripted outcomes that the game determines when you're making a play as an algorithm to it. It's not human based anymore. Rigged is when it's not a fair game, right? We can go into how organizations, like, again, when we're talking sports, whether it's NCAA, professional, right? That's why they call it sports entertainment. These organizations don't do anything to help people like you and me out paying our bills. They don't make things for us to drive our cars to get to work. They don't do it.
Mickey Mantle doesn't pay your rent.
Exactly. He doesn't pay your rent. Okay. That's why he threw his baseball cards away. But when you get to it, their money, the way they make money is on viewers and sponsors. And if you turn the clocks back 30 years ago in the 80s and 90s, like the entertainment industry, sports was a whole different way because we didn't have the technology there to push out so much sponsorship or collaborations. Now it's a whole new ball game where their business is based upon viewers and getting more digital sponsors to buy merchandising and ticket sales and maybe buying food items because Charles Barkley is on the cover of it, right? It's all relevant. So when they want players to be in the face of the situation because they know that's what you're paying to see. There's actually a documentary on this. My last point to it, and again, we'll say this for another conversation because we can be here all day talking about this, but there's a documentary on Netflix about an NBA referee who went on the record and he said that ownership of these organizations and the leaders of these organizations do favor the players because they generate more ticket sales because you are paying to watch your favorite players play. You're not watching these individuals sit on the bench. So they're going to overlook certain calls. Referees are going to overlook certain calls to keep the game going. And again, aids in the extension of plays to keep maybe the teams going when they should have probably stopped 2 or 3 downs before, 5 or 2 plays ago,
So would you, okay. Maybe we can make a sports analogy to this, and we'll see if this sticks for our viewers.
I mean, it's a fact. I'll put the link in the
no. But I mean, look, I'm kind of drawing an analogy here. So you're not saying that this is rigged to the sense that, oh, my 5-year-old son is shooting a basket, and I'm picking him up and I'm holding him, and he's gonna dunk the ball in the basket. You're not saying that. What you're saying is it's more like curling, where they have a circle that they really want that puck to land in. And the referees are going to sweep that circle and sweep the game all the way down to the end to get it to land as close to that circle as they possibly can. Is that a good way to break it down?
That's actually a better analogy that I've heard in a very long time. But yeah, they're going to try and do it because...
Fucking post it, baby.
Okay, I'm going to post this Netflix series and I'm going to timestamp it so you guys can actually listen to this thing. I mean, again, it's been going on for years. Even like the professional crime bosses have been saying the same thing. Like these games are influenced because again, we're talking years ago, but guys who got in trouble with gambling debts, like they had to owe the mob money. So they said, listen, you can't pay me back. You got to throw a game for me because I'll make the money somewhere else. And it's a fact. Like they won't give any names because their credibility will be shot. But, I guess I had an argument with somebody about this and he was like, no, it's not rigged. Why would it be rigged? And I said, well, do you think politics is rigged in terms of, he's like, absolutely. So why can't this be rigged? Well, because it's sports. There's no reason for it. Like, well, guess what, man? Like they make money off you buying a seat to watch it. They make money when TVs get more ad time to keep the game going because they can charge their subscribers and they can charge their collaborators more money to air for airtime.
Overtime in the Super Bowl.
I know. Let's not get into that because we all know that Super Bowl was was completely rigged. But
the Super Bowl was bullshit. The whole playoffs were bullshit this year. Let me just tell you that. I could not believe what happened to Baltimore. I couldn't believe it. The Niners, I had strong confidence in them, but what happened to the Lions? Come on, man. I'm a little bit over it, but I do believe it that they could be influenced. I mean, why wouldn't they be? And the same thing, you're right. Politics, is sports nowadays in America, at least.
It really is.
And
it's a
not to get
engine.
to not to pick that channel, but to pick this other one is where did sports originate, dude? The idea of sports, and I was lucky enough to go to Rome last summer in July. Right, we took the family, we took the kids, we took my son, whose middle name is Maximus, to the Colosseum, and we got to see, like, wait a minute, that's right, sports and everything kind of started as, man, we need to keep these motherfuckers occupied. Like, I don't know what to do here, right? Like, we need to keep these guys occupied, before they start watching what we're doing. So you are 100% right, and we've actually agreed here. Where
I was expecting a big argument out of this. I was expecting a big argument out of this, but I'm happy.
If
I can convert John, that's a good thing. Like,
I don't think it's rigged. I think it's curled.
Well,
I think it's curled and
tomatoes, right? Like you see red, somebody else sees orange, right? It's all about like we're looking at it again. Talk about the same thing on a two-sided coin. It's the same thing, just how you want to use an analogy out of it. It's not a fit, right? Like. I mean, listen, back to basketball. Here's another perfect example, for people who are like, griping right now or sucking their teeth in the back of their mouth right now. If you've ever seen the documentary about the Fab Five, right? And again, I'm not a basketball nut. But
the 30 for 30?
Yeah, 30 for 30. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, the hype was like all these five, freshmen get to the NCAA championship. And right. And Duke at the time, the early 90s, it was the team to beat, right? And they had, Christian Laettner on the team, and he was America's pretty boy. Anyway, right towards that one game, and again, I don't know if they played the Wolverines or somebody else. Oh, yeah, no, I think it was the Wolverines. But if you remember, and you can go on YouTube, there was a play, the guy falls on the floor, and Laettner actually stomps on his chest deliberately. Yeah. Now, he gets a technical foul, and the players from the Michigan Wolverines brings out the rule book that literally says, and they quote, that any student athlete that commits a physical altercation to another player during game time will be immediately ejected and then suspended from following play. Not him, because he's generating money for the school. People, ESPN is getting a lot of hype around him to watch him play because he was the college face during that era, and they're not going to bench him.
ESPN back then, but yeah,
I mean ESPN was around, but all right, where the hell was being broadcasted? Like, he makes the company, he makes the networks money. People are tuning in, and they're not going to bench him, especially if you're traveling out of state to go watch the Duke Blue Devils, and your favorite guys on the bench right now, just sitting there collecting dust and counting sheep.
You're fair. That's a fair point. And I just think they need to do a lot better. And one way to go would be to put AI in place, man. Like, I know, like, that's obviously subject to influence as well, but like, there are just so many egregious oversights and misses, or not, like, don't want to say non-calls, and you say like phantom calls. It's really to the point where I am losing a little bit of faith in the integrity of the game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's going south. And just, I know we're coming up on time here, but for any of you guys who think I'm making this up, on Netflix, the name of the documentary is called Flagrant Foul. I want you to watch that for the first 30 minutes. And this guy will explain. He was a straight arrow, square referee. And as time went on, he was getting orders from ownership to start making calls that were going to favor certain people because they are the face of the league. Go watch it. I promise you. I'll put it in the chat later. You guys can take a look at it.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll be back with more later this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Bigger and Louder with Anthony and John. Stay tuned. We're going to be across all your podcast channels, all your Instagrams and Facebooks and TikToks. In your face, bigger and louder as always. Love you guys. Thank you.